You guys, as always, we're here with Mike Renner, of course, our NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. You spoke with Stephen Jones earlier, no relation. And what did you have to say about George Pickens?
I don't know why you would assume there's no relation. He oddly said, we're not sure yet. We haven't made the decision on whether we're going to tag George Pickens or not. They're going to tag George Pickens because they're not going to be able to reach a long-term contract extension before the tag deadline on March the 3rd. And so they'll tag him. It'll be somewhere around $28-29 million. And they're going to hope that they can reach a long-term contract extension at some point by July 15th. I asked him about, what about a tag and trade situation and scenario? And frankly, it's more fantasy ball. It kind of doesn't happen. We always talk about it, but it doesn't actually really happen in real life. He said, we want George here. He loves what they got with this offense with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens together. They just got to fix the defense, right? And so I expect George Pickens to be playing for the Dallas Cowboys in 2026. Whether they can get a long-term contract extension done is a complete other discussion that we won't have the answer to probably for months.
I assume, though, that they will get it done because look at their cap situation. If they make him play on the tag, that money sits this year, $29 million for 2026. They can't really absorb that without doing a lot of cap finagling and other spots. So you're going to want to get that extension to bring this number down this year.
So, Mike and JJ, as we look at this graphic here, CeeDee Lamb is third on the list of highest paid wide receivers at $34 million a year. He told our Brian McFadden at the Super Bowl that he is okay with George making more than that. Does that fit into what they can do in real world salary cap situation?
You can, and Mike brings up an incredible point. You don't want that hard and fast number of $25 million to be against your cap. If you can get a long-term extension done and lower that cap hit, we know that they have so many holes on the defensive side. But they also, and just talking with Stephen Jones here in Indianapolis, he more or less admitted that at picks number 12 and 20, they're probably going defense with new defensive coordinator Christian Parker trying to figure out that new defensive scheme. So, yeah, they can manipulate their cap situation a little bit. You do the simple contract restructure with Dak Prescott's deal. Osa Odigizua, you can get some money there as well. There's plenty of other places they can do it. You'd prefer to not have to use the tag, but this is a team that has used the tag more than almost every other team when you look at the last 5 to 10 years. So they are comfortable enough doing it.
So Tommy Tran, our buddy in Fort Lauderdale, mentioned Brandon Aubrey, the kicker, arguably the best kicker in the NFL. He wants $10 million. What did Stephen say about that reality?
So there's been a lot of reporting and misreporting about what Brandon Aubrey wants, what he is demanding, and all those things. Now, of course, he wants to be the highest paid kicker in the NFL. And when we say that, when we put that on the graphic below, that could mean making $1 more than Harrison Butker. That deal has been on the table since he wants to be the highest paid kicker in the NFL. And when we say that, when we put that on the graphic below, that could mean making $1 more than Harrison Butker. That deal has been on the table since the fall. The Cowboys were ready to go over Harrison Butker's contract months and months ago. They still aren't there. Now, they have the tender that they can use, which would be less than $6 million. A team would have to give up a second-round pick in order to get Brandon Aubrey. Would a team do that? Would a team give a second-round pick to get a guy who, once you get to the 50-yard line, you have 3 points? That's huge. Right, Mike? And so I do think that a deal ultimately will get done. Stephen Jones did feel good and comfortable about that. It won't be $10 million per year. Might it be 7? Could they get up to that number? Perhaps.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting negotiation because we've never seen a weapon quite like this in terms of his ability to extend your scoring range, and especially given where the touchback is nowadays and how far returns are. You're 1 first down away from 3 points when you have Brandon Aubrey on your team. That matters a lot, especially in end-of-game situations when, it gets easier to get that 1 first down to get you into field goal range. So he's well worth it, and I'm paying what he's asking for, truthfully, at the end of the day. There's no way I'm letting him walk if I'm Dallas.
What about the scenario JJ laid out? If you're a team that needs a kicker and you're perhaps in the playoff hunt as you head into the season, second-round pick worthy?
That's a little rich for me, but in this year's class, if you're back end of the second round and you're a good team already, he'll probably provide more value than who you're picking at pick 60.
I think that's right, because you're sitting there in January and you roll.
For me, but In this year's class, if you're a back end of the second round and you're a good team already, he'll probably provide more value than who you're picking at pick 60.
I think that's right, because you're sitting there in January and you rolling out the kicker there you don't trust in a game you must win. You would easily trade that second round pick.
And to further your point, the touchback's now at the 35. You return it, maybe you get a little beyond that. You get one first down, and then you stop short of getting that second first down. You are truly, he is what, 75% to get you 3 points right there. You mentioned end of game, it's end of half. It's the second quarter scenarios where that 3 points is certainly going to matter. A team, you don't want to draft a kicker in the second round, but if you can get Brandon Aubrey for a second rounder, there are more than half the NFL teams, I think, that would do that.
Because he's a known. It's a known quantity versus second rounders. We've seen how those have worked out.
Yep.
I'm going to go off the cuff here. I think I'm right. Last kicker draft in the first round?
Sebastian Janikowski.
Sebastian Janikowski.
That's right.
I'm not sure JJ knew that, but he acted like he did, so I appreciate that. All right, let's talk about picks 12 and 20.
Treating it like you're about to win a sports bar trivia thing. It's like, well, this is an obvious one.
And that's the first question they ask. That's the start of the game, not the end of the game, smart guy. Picks 12 and 20, you mentioned that Stephen Jones said primarily defense. Anything else you learned from him?
You know, sometimes you hear these guys at the podium and they always talk about, oh, all options are on the table and we're going to take the best player available. And you guys know this from all of your mock drafts where at the end of the day, when we get through the draft, did these teams actually take the best player available, or did they take the best player at the position of most need? And almost always it is that. The Dallas Cowboys have not always done that. The year that they needed a whole lot of defense, CeeDee Lamb was staring them right in the face, and they drafted CeeDee Lamb. So they do have a history of doing something like that. But it was very clear to me that, and we're going to see how they operate in free agency and how many defensive players they can wind up getting. Could they get Nakobe Dean in free agency, a guy who probably won't be able to be retained with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he rejoins Christian Parker there in Dallas? Perhaps. But I would have to imagine they're going defense at both 12 and 20.
Yeah, and I think that's where the strength will be in this class there for them. I think it's a great cornerback class. I think they're going to have one of the top three that are available for them at 12, which is where my eyes go for them. And I think it's also a good defensive tackle class where you can get a lot of good run defenders, which obviously this team could use some run defenders there. That pick 12 actually is who I like the most for them. Jermon McCoy, the Tennessee cornerback. Obviously, this is my mock draft, so that's why I like him most for them. But he is a guy, they drafted Savone Revel last year in the third. Savone Revel tore his ACL that fall prior. Jermon McCoy tore his ACL last January. So they're willing to take that injury risk. They've shown it in the past, and especially when a guy's talented enough the way Jermon McCoy is. Doesn't look like he's going to test here, but should be testing at his pro day.
Yeah, and that's a conversation certainly to be had about when and why Jermon is testing. And let's see, I had Caleb, and again,
boy, they would love it if he's there at 12.
And as Mike can attest, great value to get him at 12 when he's a top 5 pick in Ryan Wilson's big board. Turns out I am Ryan Wilson. Two things that won't happen. Caleb Banks will not be there at 12, and Sonny Styles will not be there at 20. But in the world I was living in when this mock draft came out, Mike, I think you'd have to give that an A+.
That is your best case scenario if you are the Dallas Cowboys. That's for darn sure.
Why did you even do this mock draft, Ryan? There's no way these guys are going to be available at 12 and 20.
They might not either be there at 12.
That's also very true. But look, I'm the eternal optimist, and I want great things for the city of Dallas and their football team, so that's how I operate.
There you have it.
JJ, let's talk about another JJ. Jermaine Johnson traded from the Jets to the Titans in exchange for Tavondre Sweat. Jermaine is going into the last year of his rookie deal. Tavondre has 2 years left in his deal. Johnson is an edge rusher. Tavondre is a defensive tackle. What else do you have on that?
So, Tavondre Sweat and the Tennessee Titans in this new regime, they were never really a fit. And I know that there were some questions going back to the combine that he was at about how his passion, his love for football, his motor, his work ethic, and all that. And I think that probably reared its head a little bit in Nashville with the Tennessee Titans, and so he was somebody that we had kept an eye on at the trade deadline. Ultimately, they retained him, and now they make this deal in a rare player-for-player straight-up trade in the NFL. Jermaine Johnson, of course, goes and works with Robert Saleh. The defensive line coach there in Tennessee was also the defensive line coach with the New York Jets in Aaron Whitecotton, and yes, he had an injury more than a year ago. Wasn't all that great last year, but certainly the Titans believe that and know that they needed more pass rush, and so they think that they won this trade. Mike, what say you?
Yeah, I think this is just another in the Jets teardown, right? This is as full a teardown and rebuild as we've seen it, and I respect it. Like, they're saying that, with all the injuries, with the $13.4 million in cap hit that he has this year, that we just want a bare bones 2027 is what it looks like they're going into, with as much cap space and as much draft capital as humanly possible. And Javondre Sweat's cheap. For them, it's a guy that will greatly improve their run defense. Maybe this is kind of a wake-up call for him, same way it could have been for Adonai Mitchell, who had similar sort of reviews out of Indy about how locked in he was week in and week out. So they're getting those kind of guys, those reclamation projects with a ton of talent, and probably showing a guy the door who wasn't in their long-term plans given his injuries.
Right. They have Will McDonald IV, who outplayed, I think, Jermaine Johnson. They have picks 2, pick 16, pick 33, and then all the picks next year. So to Mike's point, this is a tear down, and then the rebuild becomes a real question here.
What I was going to say, pick 2 always felt like edge was the best value for them. They
After
have a
Dante Moore decided to return to school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with a logjam at edge, this frees up that spot for whoever they do.
Absolutely. And Quinnen obviously was part of the trade that sent to Dallas, and they got picks for that as well. JJ, Anthony Richardson, reportedly, you actually confirmed it, so it is no longer a report, is free to seek trade opportunities. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And it's not a surprise. We heard from Chris Ballard say that, we believe that he has a future just the other day. It's been very clear that Anthony Richardson's days in Indianapolis are numbered. Now, I surveyed around the league earlier today. What do you think a team would ultimately give up in order to get Anthony Richardson? A lot of folks said it was harder to see anything above a 6th-round pick for a guy who was the number 4 overall pick just a few years ago. When you add in all of the injuries, and that goes back to Florida, and that has certainly continued on with Indianapolis, when you consider the shoulder, wherever he goes, the team doctors are going to have to get their hands on him, right? So that's going to take some time. And then lastly, his play, even when he was healthy, was subpar, was not very good. So, he's going to wind up somewhere else. I know a lot of people want to say the Minnesota Vikings because of clips that they've seen of, Kevin O'Connell and Anthony Richardson, and maybe that winds up being the case. But if the Indianapolis Colts are able to get a 5th-round pick for Anthony Richardson, they should take that deal immediately.
So, Mike, let me ask you this, because we were talking landing spots earlier, and one of the obvious ones, the Steelers, the Jets, the Cardinals. Rand brought this up, Rand Carthon, our colleague. What about backup in Baltimore?
That was my first thought. It was either back up in Baltimore or, depending on if the Eagles trade Tanner McKee, to be back up in Philadelphia. Go behind one of the better mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, a guy who's got it, and learn from them, and then maybe you get your shot. After that, maybe they get hurt, maybe you get your shot during the season, but I just don't think anyone's signing up right now saying, hey, I want that guy to be my franchise quarterback next year. I don't think he gets that opportunity.
And the other cautionary tale, fewer than 15 starts. That list also includes Mitchell Trubisky, and it's going to soon include Ty Simpson. So that's the things that teams have to figure out as they get through this process. Ty is a completely different player, but something that will no doubt be a talking point. Mr. Tommy Tran, I'm going to throw it back to you, and I'm going to head out with these guys to 8-Bit and going to play a little Pac-Man, and we'll be thinking of you when we do it.
Nerds.
We were just talking about nerds. we like nerds.
I've gone, Tommy, with you to a, what do you call it, like a video
an
game
arcade
bar.
Yeah, those are fun. And Indianapolis has one. That's what Ryan was talking about. So
and this is why your wife and I were on the dance floor while you were playing some nerdy video game.
That might have been true.
Yeah.
There's a look at Mike Renner's mock draft again. We've been using it for this segment. No dispute about Fernando Mendoza going 1, but you see a lot of Ohio State there in the top 10.